One problem facing people at many levels of business is how to make time for a work life and a personal life. Do you find that one seems to keep getting in the way of the other? This is the Work-Life Balance with Rick Morris. Even if you're not involved in the business world, you'll have a lot to gain by tuning into today's show. Now, here is your host, Rick Morris.
And welcome to another edition of the Work-Life Balance with Rick Morris here. I'm so excited for today's show. This is a show that's been a long time in the making. We're going to jump right into it. Our normal announcements, right, of speaking engagements that are coming up. Of course, Monday I'm going to be at PMI Birmingham here in Alabama. And then, of course, I believe it's Thursday is going to be the virtual summit for CA Agile Management. So we're going to be speaking at that. We'll be doing the struggle between Agile and project management. So you can always visit us at rickamorris.com to find out about those events. But I've got a very special guest with us in the house. We want to jump right into it. So this gentleman is an award-winning international speaker, renowned project leadership expert, and best-selling author who works with organizations around the world to help them build capability that's fit for the future of work. He's able to draw on more than 20 years of public and private sector project leadership, which is incredible because he's only 22 years old. But he's been doing this in the UK, New Zealand, Australia, and he peppers his presentations with anecdotes, statistics, practical insights, and tons of humor to ensure that audiences are engaged and laughing. And I know that firsthand because I got the opportunity to share a stage with him recently, and he is phenomenal. He gets people talking through his emphasis on people being the best version of themselves and creating teams that they can be proud of. So let's get him right now on the show, The Work-Life Balance. Let's welcome Colin Ellis. How you doing, Colin?
I'm really good, thanks, Rick. I wish my kids had been here for that introduction. They'd have been like, really? That guy?
and do you find that, right? So I've got two kids too, and I go downstairs and I'm just dad, right? So they're like, there's no way that he does that stuff.
Well, that's right. I've done like yourself, Rick, done a few YouTube things, and my daughter's super proud, and she'll watch these things. My daughter's read the book. She makes notes. She's 10, right? Whereas my son is a bit like, well, you're still rubbish at Call of Duty World War II. I can still I'm like, okay, cheers, thanks.
Yeah, my daughter's 17 now. And so early on, she used to brag that she had more social media followers than I did. That was our big thing. She had like 13,000 followers. I don't know how she did it. I was like, you need to share some of that strategy with me, right? I'd like
damn right, too. Yeah.
So we want to get into today's interview, but let's just, again, introduce yourself to the audience. Just talk a little bit about your experience and how you got into doing what you're doing.
Well, I think, most of us, Rick, fall into project management by accident. I think there's a statistic out there from the Project Management Institute. I think 70% of the profession falls into project management by accident. I was working in telesales for a newspaper company in Liverpool. Liverpool's my home in the UK way back when. And I fell into it by accident for year 2000. What a gravy train year 2000 was to be a project manager. We had entertainment budgets. They're long since gone. I remember one project in Northern Ireland. We had an entertainment budget of like £40,000, and we spent it 6 weeks before we actually went live. Those were the days. I really cut my teeth in project management in the UK, which was home. I emigrated to New Zealand in 2007. And headed up large government project departments. And I think at the time there was this real emphasis on the need for more discipline, more structure, and they thought that was all about process and methods. And of course, while that's important, that's where you don't get discipline from method, you get discipline from people. So, the approach that I brought to New Zealand from the UK at the time was quite different. And so, I got a good reputation as someone who knew how to do the right things in projects. In the 6 years that I spent in New Zealand, and I worked for, I think, 6 government departments, headed up project departments there. And then emigrated to Australia in 2013 and headed up a government department here in the project department. And again, a real emphasis on leadership and culture. And then, you know what, Rick, I went to a project management conference in 2014, was completely underwhelmed by the presenters. No disrespect. As soon as someone says no disrespect,
you're about to disrespect them, right?
No disrespect to the speakers, but they were all rubbish. But I just didn't feel inspired and motivated. And I think you and I talked about this when we met last year, is, I wanted to be someone who could do that to the profession, because we just don't have a very good track record. And so I felt there was a real need for honesty. I felt there was a real need for someone to share practically what they do well, rather than talking about the things that have broken and that don't work. And so I decided to go and work for myself at a time when I didn't know a single person in Australia. So that went well for the 9 months. Ended up taking a contract here with a big telecommunications company, but then got some traction probably about, I would say, 2 years ago. And now I speak and I train for a living. And the things that I talk about generally are, how to be the best version of yourself. And then this concept of team building. I think we make an assumption that every project manager knows how to build a great team that everybody wants to join, and that's not true. And so I literally help organizations transform their project delivery cultures, which has taken me to lots of great places around the world, and I love every single minute of it, Rick.
Yeah, and so there's really two phrases I've been playing with, and this leads into the next question of why we think project management has been so slow to change. And I've been kind of zeroing in on success seekers versus failure avoiders. Right? I think the profession itself has been trained to avoid failure and not be very innovative or quick to change, versus really being out there and seeking success and trying to find all the ways that we can be successful. What do you think?
I agree, and there are lots of quotes from books to say, failure is the best, lesson and all this kind of stuff. Actually, for me, it's the successes are the best lessons, I've always been the kind of person that went looking for other people who've done the things that we've done and asked them what made them successful and copied that, rather than the opposite, to say, well, listen, what went wrong? We need to avoid that. And I think our profession for too long, Rick, has tried to attain certainty, too much certainty, which doesn't mirror either human beings or the way the world works. I think we're seeing now with this push to agile, as people are like, oh, we need, we need more flexibility, we need less certainty. But in reality, most organizations still want the certainty and the flexibility. And so for me, you're right. I think, the more we should be looking to learn from the successes of others, whilst being mindful of the failures too.
And one of my favorite quotes John Maxwell has been saying lately is that the older he gets, the less certain or the less amount of certainties he has, but the certainties that he does have, he's more certain than ever before. And I love that thought pattern, right? Because, when you're younger, you think you know everything, right? But as you get older, the things that you're certain that you know are fewer and far between, but the ones that you do know, right, those are absolute certainties. And I'm starting to see that in project management, because what I see is in failure, we tend to create another form and add bureaucracy onto it, right? Every time we fail, it's another process. Let's throw another stage gate in there, that kind of stuff. And it's just like, it was a dumb failure. It's not a big deal. But I think it comes back to that certainty. And somewhere our job title became prognosticator. Like, we have to guarantee a date and a budget. I don't know. Have you ever seen that in your job description? And talk about that.
The funny thing with that as well, Rick, is there's so many statistics out there that will tell you that, kind of less than a third of, projects come in on time and budget. And yet there's this still, this stretch that we put ourselves in to get to that certainty. Some of the best projects I've ever been involved in, even, until recently when I left my permanent jobs, were waterfall projects, where we planned it really well up front, but we knew there was about 25% or 15 to 25% uncertainty in there. And I think there's so many people who are desperate to get that certainty so they can, confirm when and how much, without realizing that those are the nature of projects is those are the very things that change. We have a big telecommunications project over here that's been running, I don't know, feels like for about 20 years, about 5 years. And of course it's gone over time, and of course it's gone over budget, because the nature of telecommunications has changed just in 5 years. We're talking about 5G connections now on our phones. Well, that could render most broadband connections useless. But that didn't get factored in at the start. And I love the prognosticator. And I also love, one of my particular favorite forms is the lessons learned report at the end. By which stage, you've already failed about another 10 times in that time. It's ridiculous.
And nobody ever learns. And what do you do with the lessons learned? Well, we put them on SharePoint.
Yeah, that's right.
Nobody ever reads them. Nobody ever does anything with them.
Yeah, no one ever reads it, ever. Never reads it. It's ridiculous.
Yep. But we can check the box that we did it, right? Let's fill out the other form that we did the lessons learned form, right? So that we can check the box.
Yeah. And I worked with an organization recently, and those that are serious about transforming the cultures, I always say, okay, well, look, give me everything that you've learned so far, and it's always a spreadsheet. Like, it's always a spreadsheet. I'm like, who's looked at this?
Yeah.
It's like, oh well, it's been on our PMO intranet site for, I don't know, like 1 million years.
Yeah.
So that was from the auditors.
Last updated 2009. Good job. Right. Yeah, well done. Well, we're going to take our first break here because we got tons to talk about. We're sitting here talking to Colin Ellis. He's a great friend from now Australia, but my UK brother. And we'll be right back on the Work-Life Balance with Rick Morris. And we're back on this Friday afternoon to the Work-Life Balance. We're visiting with Colin Ellis. Colin's written a couple of books. One is Project Rots from the Head, which I've read. It's fantastic. And then The Conscious Project Leader. As a matter of fact, there's a video, Colin, just so you know that I've read it, the About Rick A. Morris video on my front page, my home page. As it's like scrolling through the books, you can see your books and like Maxwell books and that kind of stuff, but it's right there. So you get some free advertising from us there as well. Hey, look, right? It's all timing. It's all timing, product placement. It's like you paid for product placement, just like the Back to the Future movies. But anyway, coming back to the show with Colin. So Colin, obviously the biggest buzzword out there right now is agile. And so, as we've been having project issues and project management issues, the problem's just the methodology, right? So if we just switch the methodology to agile, then everything's going to go away. It's just awesome, right? Isn't that going to fix everything?
Oh, totally going to fix everything. Everyone should just go agile. If you just go agile on Monday, then everything's sorted. I mean, you could probably just end this podcast right here. It's one of those things. Deloitte every year produces a human capital trends report, Rick, and 94% of the organizations that they interviewed said that agility and collaboration are critical to their organization's success in 2018. So it really has become this buzzword, and everybody is jumping on everybody else's bandwagon.
So I feel like it's the Six Sigma craze, right? You remember Six Sigma came out and everybody's like, wow. So, and I equate it to the same thing as the Master Black Belt, right? Because there was a big study that came out that said for every Master Black Belt you have, you could save up to $2 million in process recovery. But people would go hire them like they would show up with a $2 million check. It's like, we don't have to change anything. As long as we hire that person, then we're going to get the savings.
Yeah, absolutely right. And it's exactly the same kind of thing. There was a report done in the UK last year. 300 CIOs were interviewed and they said, oh, Agile's becoming an institution in its own right. Well, of course it is. Of course it is, because you're asking for it. And as soon as you ask for it, someone's going to sell it to you. But what most of them don't realize is that this move to a more flexible way of delivering is a massive cultural shift. And unless, the people have got the right soft skills, the hardest things to change, then it's never going to work. Those same CIOs said only 6% of them said that Agile worked in their organization. Well, yeah, because you did nothing to prepare the culture for it. You just jumped on the Six Sigma, you just jumped on the Agile bandwagon, sent everyone on a Scrum course and expected it to work. It was never going to.
And so I did a whole show on euphemisms between Agile and project management. So, the Agilists will come in and they'll say, hey, we've got this great thing called big room planning. It's like, yeah, we have work breakdown structure meetings, just nobody would show up. And they're like, hey, we got these retrospectives, yeah, we've got lessons learned, just nobody reads them. Right? It's the same thing. You can't change the words and expect the methodology, but there are a lot of benefits to Agile, right? Once you see it sinking in and once you see the organizational change supporting it, I think there's tremendous benefit in a hybrid approach to certain Agile methodologies, but it's not an end-all be-all fix. And you can't, I've certainly had an Agilist tell me we don't need project management anymore because we're Agile.
Yeah, all the methods work, right? I want to make that absolutely clear. Someone said to me once, oh, are you just down on methods? I was like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I was like, I'm down on them as a quick fix is what I'm down on. But they all work. They all work. And if you look at the original Agile Manifesto, when it was written in 2001, it was kind of a rage against this move towards project managers telling people what to do. The first of the values is individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Well, that's still true today, as it was in 98 when I was project managing, right? It's just, it really, really is actually, if you get a group of people in a room working together, it's still going to be more effective than saying, follow that process and you'll be successful. And so everything that they wrote about back in 2001, it is still relevant today. But you're right, all people have done is just put another name on something, because we were doing stand-ups, way back when.
But I think it comes back to what you had said, and you said it quickly, and I don't want to gloss over the importance of it, which is the soft skills. And if we look at, project rats from the head, and we talk about that in the flow down, first you get the issue, if we pick way too many projects, we don't have enough project managers. So then we just are picking project managers, anybody can run a project, right? Because that's what they think, it's the skill set. So we lump all those statistics in. Then we don't have them following a methodology. So it becomes that big thing. So then we have this project planning where everybody says, well, I need a task for everything and I'm going to make you track it. And then we turn around and say, but you're command and control. Right, because we need reporting and percent complete and all these mandates. So I always ask the question, right, is this craze of Agile a failure of the profession, or a failure of the profession having the soft skills necessary to push back and to change the culture?
Well, I think it's a great point that you make, Rick, because I think what's happened is the people who sell project management to the world have created an army of people who are wedded to a particular way of thinking and a particular way of working. If you look at all of the textbooks, in the UK and here in Australia and New Zealand, it's very much Prince 2. Prince 2 is a 452 or whatever it is page tome that says nothing about the interpersonal skills you need to be successful. Nothing. Now, Prince 2 works, right? But it only works, like a fool with a tool is still a fool, right? It works in the hands with someone who's emotionally mature. And I always say, and you'll agree with this, is project management's a relationship and communication business. They're the two things you need to be really, really good at. You need to be really, really good at. I have a little thing that I do with project managers. And I always say, tell me what kind of project manager you are. And they'll say, I'm a Scrum Master. Or I'm a Prince 2 project manager. I'm like, oh my God, no. What are you? Are you a social project manager? Are you action? Are you like someone who likes to get things done? Are you a people project manager? But we've become used to talking about ourselves in terms of methods. And the other thing for me, Rick, as well, is when we talk about technical skills for project managers, we talk about things like SharePoint. I'm a SharePoint project manager, and I talk to HR managers at conference and say, listen, the way you hire people is wrong. Project manager required, must have SharePoint experience. Well, that's a SharePoint SME. That's not a project manager. It should be project manager required, must be a role model for others, must be able to create relationships and maintain them, must be good at managing poor performers, must be great at navigating risk. These are all technical skills that we need. And there's a real lack of emphasis on these.
Project server experience required. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Right.
And but I think you got into it because the aha moment for me was around 2002 when I discovered disc profiles. And so I went out and really got certified, really understood that. And you've actually taken that and rebranded that in your speak, right? But essentially that's what you're talking about when you're talking about people and action and that kind of stuff. You've essentially developed your own style of disc profiling for the project management world. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think there's a lot of stuff out there from a personality perspective. And, and I've done all of the profiles, done DISC, I've done Myers-Briggs, TMS, all of these things, but none of them ever put the information in a language that I could understand, interpret, and talk to others about, or as individuals, we could share it. And so I've done exactly that. I've tailored it to the project management world so that we can understand what kind of project manager we all are. And we're all predominantly one of these things. Now we're human beings, we're complex, so no one can ever put us in a box, right? But I think it's an important conversation to have when we look, when I challenge people to sort of say, okay, well, what do you need to work on? what's the thing that you need to work on? Because there's a certain arrogance in the project management world, Rick, where people go, they get the badges, and they're like, right, cool, I'm done. I'm like, well, no, emotional intelligence is the most important skill you need to master as a project manager. And that never stops evolving, which means you're never the finished article. There's lots of talk about, millennials coming into the workplace. Well, different generations have come into the workplace all of the time. And it's up to us as human beings to develop the new communication skills to be able to motivate and inspire a new generation of people to do the work that makes our organization successful.
And baby boomers didn't know what to do with Generation X.
Right.
We were the weird ones to them. We were the lazy, unmotivated, whatever. And all of a sudden now we're looking at it's the exact same thing. But at the end of the day, it's all about learning how to communicate outwardly. And what I've always loved about DISC, or what I loved about yours, and I watched you do it from stage, you do a brilliant job. And I think it is, right, I have done a deep dive, I'm certified in DISC, and I teach DISC, but I think it is very technical. And so, again, when you're sitting there in an audience, when you're sitting there going, you're a dominant, or right, I love your style with ease that you do that with. So I highly recommend it. But the conversation's the most important. That this is what I gravitate towards. This is what I have to remember, that there's 3 other types in the room, right? There's the one that I like, but there's 3 other types in the room that I've got to inspire and motivate. And when project managers get that, that's when they grow.
Yeah, that's right, Rick. So in my permanent jobs, when I was interviewing project managers, program managers, PMO managers for jobs, one of the questions I always used to ask is, okay, because everyone puts great communicator at all levels. I love that on the CV. Right. And then the answer is, I can have a conversation with the CEO and the cleaner. I'm like, oh, really? Yeah. So what happens if they're different personalities? And so I used to ask a question as you've got 4 personalities in the room, tailor a message to 4 personalities. And the people that were able to do it or understood the question generally got the job. Now, I can't overemphasize this enough. This is the most important skill that project managers need, because our job is to motivate and inspire a group of people to build products that give the customers what they need, right? We've got to motivate and inspire a group of people. If you're not able to deliver a message in a way that someone wants to hear, not the way that you want to say, forget it.
But I think one of the other quotes that comes to mind too is that everybody loves change except for project managers. So for them to actually get that, they have to recognize that they themselves have to grow and learn. And I would say it's been 6 years now that I've been on my personal growth journey. But up until then, right? Because again, I'm only 17, so it's incredible, just like you're 22. But honestly, the times that I was a project manager from 20 to age 35, I don't think I was as successful as I could have been, because I fit into that category that I didn't really need to learn. And in the last 10 years of my project management career, I've grown exponentially, understanding that I'm imperfect and I don't know anything. I almost feel like I have to throw everything out and relearn every day, but that's a better way to be.
Absolutely. Barry O'Reilly wrote for the PMI in 2017, and he said that we need to unlearn the skills that hold us back. And I think the key to being a good project manager is self-awareness, is understanding what you're good at and then imparting that knowledge onto other people. But then also looking at the things that you don't necessarily do well. And of course, the way to find out is to ask the question, and then to unlearn those skills to keep us relevant. Because I think lots of people have this assumption that they get to a certain level in the organization and that's it, I stop growing. Next job for me, CEO. Well, geez, CEO, that's something else again with regards to communication. I see lots of uninspirational CEOs who will say, oh, well, that's who I am. It's like, well, no, you got to learn just like everybody else. You got to learn some new skills and you got to unlearn some other skills too.
Yeah, I think in the executive land, it becomes the most dangerous when they stop learning. They think that they've arrived. I think at any point in any career, whether you're McDonald's or whether you're the CEO of a Fortune 10 company, if you think you've arrived, I think that's when you've stopped.
Yeah, and Herb Kelleher, Southwest Airlines, talks about that all the time, given the age he is. He's like, there's never a day I don't learn something. And I love that. It's true.
Yeah, Maxwell's the same. So we're going to take a break right here. We'll be right back with Colin Ellis. You're listening to the Work-Life Balance with Rick Morris. Work-Life Balance this Friday afternoon, and we've been visiting with Colin Ellis, and you can see all about him. It's colindellis.com, right? Is that where we find you?
It is colindellis.com, yeah.
Colin, it's like Rick A. Morris, right? We got to throw our middle initial in there just to throw everybody off. Mine is, though, because if you got to Google it later just for fun. Everybody who's listened to me for a long time, you got to do this too. If you Google image search Rick A. Morris, there you'll see a lot of pictures of me and then some dude who killed somebody. Some guy in an inmate costume. My daughter just showed me that. And I was really, really pleased to see it. But anyway, coming back. So with the advent of Agile in project management, everything else, I went through an Agile certification recently, and it was so funny because when I was going through it, it was Agile is like all butterfly communal living. Everybody hugs each other. It's wonderful. And project management is like Godzilla's just wrecking the town, and it's just death and destruction and blood everywhere. And so where do we think the future of project management is really going?
Well, for me, I think organizational agility, as a world, we've moved on, Rick, and I think most organizations are looking for better, smarter, faster ways to do things, although they should have always been doing that. But I think the command and control structures that we had of the past, they do have to change. And I think finding better ways, especially to deliver projects, is key, because projects are still the best way to grow the business. But I think some organizations have got some hard decisions to make in order to reach that. And key to that is having emotionally mature staff. And so EQ, emotional intelligence, for too long has been a kind of nice to have. We've called it soft skills to get around the fact that we never really invest in it. And I think that, EQ programs are a must. They're a must, and they're a must in project management as well. I've got an online course. There are a few others out there. And they are the key to transforming your organization to become more agile. Is to make sure you've got emotionally mature people. But not only that you performance manage out some of the behaviors that don't fit the new organization. Dutch Bank ING made the transition to agile a few years back. They spent 9 months just on EQ training, like 9 months just on that. And then they disestablished people and, kind of only kept the people with the right behaviors. And at the time, Bart Schlappman, who's the COO, said, we lost a lot of people with the right knowledge, but the wrong behaviors.
That's interesting. And so what do you think, we got a question from the audience here as well. What do you think, though, the Amazon, Google, Facebook effect to project management as well, right? Everything is faster now. And we're shortchanging a lot of project delivery. What do you think that kind of effect has had on it?
Well, we shouldn't really be shortchanging it. My personal view is that, the future is in teams. I think we should be looking to empower everybody in the team. The project manager of the future, and it's the project manager of now of those forward-thinking organizations like Netflix, Spotify, Atlassian, those kind of software companies, is the power is really in teams. Project managers should become the coach. Now, we've kind of got that a little bit with agile coaches, but we've still made it about the method. They're still coaching on the method rather than the soft skills, rather than showing them how to run a workshop, design thinking, building social contracts. That should be the future of delivery. And I think because projects are still the best way to grow a business, there still has to be a discipline. Jim Highsmith, who of course was one of the original signatories of the Agile Manifesto, and he wrote the book Agile Project Management. He said that then there still needs to be discipline in projects, even in agile. And so I think it's important that the project manager of the future sees themselves as a kind of coach, mentor, but with that real emphasis on making sure that there's a strong bond between the team, there's a strong social contract, that we embrace diversity. But also we've got this concept to scale up, scale down quickly, scale up, scale down. And this is the big cultural shift, Rick, right? Because organizations have to move quickly to make decisions. Like senior managers think agile's a shortcut when it demands more of their time, not less. So that's a crucial cultural change they need to make.
Well, and they've got to trust their teams more. So that's something that we talk about quite a bit, right? So if you are having project delivery problems right now and you don't trust your resources, going agile is actually going to exacerbate that issue, because you've got to allow the team to make decisions and move forward without, that. The other thing I think is interesting, one thing I really like agile for, though, is the reverse of the funnel, right? Because right now most organizations are picking projects based on what they can spend and not what their resources can reasonably achieve. And right, in agile is kind of forcing them to say, well, you only have this much. This is what you can do. What's the best that you can put into that funnel? And I think that requires huge EQ on the executive side.
Huge EQ, Rick, huge. I went to meet with an organization in Hong Kong not so long ago, and they wanted to transform the delivery culture, and they'd heard about the great work, and that was great. And the guy said to me, he's like, oh, we want to be like Spotify. I was like, okay, cool, great, Spotify, they're a good model, I like that. Are you prepared to do away with budget management and go to quarterly business reviews? He's like, what? I was like, well, it means empowering the team. You give them a pot of money and empower them to deliver what they believe is going to give you the best business value because they're the experts in that particular domain. Oh, no, we don't really need that. Anyway, long story short, what he basically wanted was more disciplined waterfall approach. And I said, listen, the way to deliver anything efficiently is through high EQ people. But if you want to move to a more agile model, you need to get your people and your culture ready for it. And not only that, you need to change the way that you think and run your business. And that's key to making sure that you achieve this organizational agility that you strive for.
Yeah, so you can contrast that with, like, I got a call from a client this week that their resource managers aren't in the PPM system and putting in allocations, so therefore they can't see what their resources are doing, can't make decisions. So to combat that, what they want to do is enforce resource requisitioning, which is about 10 to 12 clicks more per resource, right? So what we're going to do is punish the people that are actually using the system and make them hate the system even more. And the people aren't in the system, so they're not even going to notice the change. So instead of dealing with the organizational behavior, what we're going to do is enhance the tool to make it worse and then blame the tool when it doesn't work. Right? I mean,
absolutely right.
And that's unfortunately 95% of the organizations out there.
It is, Rick, and I'm desperate for people to want to change. And my first question is, I'm the guy to help you transform your business, but how badly do you want to do it? Like, how badly what decisions are you going to make? What things are you going to unlearn? I always insist on speaking to the chief executive because I said, because we're talking about big money here. If you want to truly transform the way you deliver projects, what are you going to do? You expect project managers, you expect project teams to all change. But actually, what are you going to do? And that's the central theme in the book. The project rots from the head, because it does. Committed executive sponsorship is still the number one factor for success in projects. So those guys have got to change too, rather than just getting rid of project managers or insisting on going agile.
Yeah, so the analogy I always use is like fad dieting, right? So we all don't have Oprah money where, you can pay for somebody to smack the food out of your hand, right? So you've got to make different changes. I can't sit around and eat chocolate cake and go, well, the Atkins diet sucks, I'm not going to use that. That's a poor diet. No, I didn't change my behavior. Therefore, I didn't lose weight. Right.
Absolutely.
And the recipe, right? There's a million diet plans out there, right? Just like there's a million methodologies, but it's eat right, exercise, you'll lose weight.
Yeah. I wrote a blog. My blog this week, Rick, was on tribes, squads, neighborhoods, and confusion. That's what I called it. Because, again, as part of the Agile fad, people just changing the names of teams, co-locating, but doing nothing about the interpersonal behaviors and those individuals who've always been a problem getting in the way of change. And we see this in our projects all the time. And unfortunately, sometimes those people are the project managers. Well, some people will tell you it's most times, because that's what we've bred. We've bred this army of people with templates who don't want to let go of their subject matter expertise, which happens to be the technical thing that they were happily doing before they were told they were a project manager.
Yeah, it's like, again, configuring a system for the 2% versus the 98%. So let's think about all the things that could go wrong and let's over-configure it so the 98% takes 12 times as long, just in case that 2% might happen.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so frustrating. So frustrating. So do you have a new book coming out?
I'm just pitching a new one to publishers now, Rick. I wanted the next, I've written 2 project management books now, and I wanted the next one to be more about leadership book, but like not a leadership book, because there's so many leadership books out there. God, the last thing the world needs is another leadership book. So I wrote the white paper at the start of the year, which is really my call to action for organizations that want to get better at project management. So I published that last week. So that's the thing that I worked on at the start of this year.
And that's the Project Delivery What Next, is that correct?
That's right, Project Delivery What Next, yeah.
And can people find that online, or?
They can find it on my website, so that's colindellis.com. So they can find it on there. There's a little white papers section. And if they connect on LinkedIn, it's all over there too.
Yep, I've had a chance to read it. I think it's fantastic. So it's a lot of the things that we continue to push for. How long do we think it's going to take for it to really take on, though?
Yeah, and there's just some big institutions holding us back, Rick. I find there's lots of commonality in the thinking. So a lot of people have got in touch all over the world, say it's great, it's really good thinking, but it's not what we're seeing. You and I have the same thoughts. Most project management speakers think in the same way. And in the paper itself, I said, we've got to stop following old-fashioned institutions and people who are holding us back from delivering change in our profession. It really is time for a new movement of people, a new tribe of people to kind of stand up and reclaim this thing called project management before people do away with it forever, in the name of efficiency and effectiveness, and then find out that actually it did have a role to play. It was just playing the wrong one.
And again, I feel it starts with us reclaiming the title. And so that's one thing that I speak about quite a bit from stage is, you don't see a CFO running around at the end of the fourth quarter saying, high school math, come help me close my books. So why do we do that with the project management profession? It's just like anybody who's got spare time and a clean desk can be a project manager. I think first we have to start demanding respect for our title.
Yeah, that's right. And you spoke about that really well when I saw you last year. And I think that, project managers they should be the future of the organization. They should be setting the example. They should be role models for others to follow. And I think once we get 60, 70% of the people doing that, others will look at project management and aspire to it, Rick, and go, God, I want to be like that. Rather than, I want to improve my daily rate. I'm just going to put project manager on my resume.
Yeah. Go take a test. And then keep my PDUs up so I don't ever have to take the test again. Yeah. We're going to take our final break here, right, with Colin Ellis, and we'll be right back with the work-life balance. And we're on for our final segment of the work-life balance. Do have a couple of quick announcements, though. We did get a few calls about where the Facebook Live is. So you can always go to the R2 Consulting webpage or find me on Facebook, Rick A. Morris. We have changed the format. So not only are we broadcasting live all over the world on the Voice America network, across the Voice America app, but we are on Facebook Live now and via Zoom. So if you go to rickamorris.com/Voice America, you can always check out our guests live. That's 5 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Central. But we will be doing this live via webinar as well. So you can see my guest's pretty face. I don't know that you always want to see mine. That's why we were in radio originally. We'll also then edit the video that we've been doing on Facebook Live and post that out on YouTube, and then you'll see those links and retweets by my guest as well as on our Twitter and Facebook if you follow us there. So coming back to Colin. So Colin, we always ask every one of our guests, what's some of the greatest advice you've ever received?
One of the greatest pieces of advice I received, Rick, actually was when I didn't believe one of my bosses was acting or behaving in the right way. And I remember he took me into his office and I said, hey, listen, Martin, that's not his real name. His real name's Dave. He says, hey, Martin. I was like, I really don't think that's the way to talk to someone. And he said to me at the time, he said, Colin, when you're sat in this chair, you can behave exactly as you want. But until then, I'm going to do things my way. And it was a real kind of slap in the face early on in my career. And I thought, well, I want to get to your position so I can demonstrate the right way to do things and the right way to behave. So it was kind of a converse or inverse, I guess, piece of advice at that time. And then, when I wanted to start work for myself, and I never had the desire to work for myself, Rick. I never had the desire to be a public speaker or any of that stuff. I happened to read Tribes by Seth Godin. Now, Seth Godin is someone that I followed for a couple of years now, and I love his work. And you know, I just thought project management was too big to change. I really did. And I read his book, and in it there was a great line in there, and it said, whatever the status quo is, changing it gives you the chance to be remarkable. And it's something that stayed with me, you know, and I've met some fabulous people, and I think collectively we've started to see a change in the way that people view project management, you know, and that continues to inspire the work that I do. And every time I kind of, you know, because like everyone, because I'm a human being, and you know, I get disheartened from time to time about some of the things that I read and some of the things that I see, you know, and those words ring in my ears, you know, the chance to be remarkable. And so I look wherever I can, and I do this through my blogs and my books and my speeches and my training is to give away as much of my IP as I possibly can so that others can learn and do things differently.
Totally agree. I got a chance to meet and hang out with Seth about a year ago.
No way.
And he asked me a question about being a freelancer or being an entrepreneur that changed my entire way I do business. The guy's brilliant. He's incredible. But he does the same. He just freely gives out ideas. And in one of his speeches, I mean, you've got to almost record it and play it back because you'll miss 30 of them as he's throwing them out. He's amazing live. He's just so amazing. But no, I totally agree. I think that's great advice. So listen, man, tell everybody where they can find you, how they can connect with you, all the fun stuff, where they show up for dinner.
Self-promotion stuff. I said to someone once, like, I don't do self-promotion well. It's like, dude, you just done it for 45 minutes on stage. Sorry. So they can get me at colindellis.com. One of the questions I always get asked is, what does the D stand for? I always say, you know, I'll leave that to your imagination. It's David. It's my dad's name. It's the English tradition, colindellis.com. You can get me on LinkedIn at Colin D. Ellis, and please feel free to connect. You can find me on Facebook at Colin D. Ellis as well. There's kind of a theme running through here. Same on Twitter, Colin D. Ellis.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for getting up really, really early because the time zone in Australia is incredible. But we certainly appreciate you hanging out with us. I can't wait for you to be stateside again so you and I can share another drink together, my friend.
Ditto, Rick. It's been an absolute pleasure and worth getting up early for. Absolutely it has. And I can't wait to catch up.
Thank you, brother. So next week, we're going to have Mark McAuliffe on the show. Mark is a fellow John Maxwell team member. He does an incredible job really setting you up for leadership, for success, and understanding what's holding you back. So he's promised 3 key tips to really help you advance in your learning, and 2 mental tricks that you're going to be able to apply immediately during the show. So we can't wait to have Mark on the show with us. And then it looks like, and you know, I almost hate to promote it because, you know, we promoted him before, but it looks like we're going to be able to make up the show with Michael Obrachta coming up soon as well. And we'll also have Paul Gustafson on the show on the 25th. So we've got an exciting lineup coming up on the Voice America Network right here on the Work-Life Balance Show. So we hope that you will continue to join us and continue to support us. We certainly appreciate all of you listening. So please stay tuned to the Voice America Business Network for the next show coming up, and we will see you guys next Friday.
Thank you for joining us this week. The Work-Life Balance with Rick Morris can be heard live every Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific Time and 5 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Business Channel. Now that the weekend is here, it's time to rethink your priorities and enjoy it. We'll see you on our next show.